Good evening to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you for this evening session on challenges to inclusion COVID-19. We all know the impact of COVID-19 lockdown has been severe on communities and groups who live on the periphery. Among these communities, three most excluded groups are the interstate migrants, refugees, and immigrant Indians stranded in the destination countries and are unable to return. During this lockdown, we heard little or nothing about the refugees. Of course, some news about the immigrant migrants when special flights were sent to bring them back. A lot has been seen and heard about interstate migrants whose pain and agony we witnessed. Today, we are going to club all these three groups together and look at them as groups and sectors which are not included in the COVID-19 response. We have eminent panelists to enlighten us on this topic, and I'm very happy to welcome all three of them on your behalf and on behalf of Loyola College. Their exposition will highlight the response of the state as well as the problems encountered by them. It is my joy to introduce the panelists now. Mr. Oscar Mundia, Chief of Mission, United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees, New Delhi. Mr. Oscar Mundia is the UNHCR Chief of Mission for India and Maldives. Mr. Mundia joined UNHCR in 1993 and throughout his career has served in many field operations as well as UNHCR headquarters, Geneva, in various capacities. The operations covered include Uganda, Liberia, Tanzania, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Pakistan. Between 2004 and 2005, Mr. Mundia worked on secondment to the Department of Peacekeeping Operations with the UN mission in Liberia as a special assistant to Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General. He has also served as a senior inspection officer in Inspector General Office, the operations manager, and later Deputy Director Africa Bureau in UNHCR headquarters, as well as head of UNHCR office in Peshawar, Pakistan, and for a short period of time as regional representative for the UNHCR Southern African operations. From 2018 until his assignment to India as Chief of Mission, he worked as the Senior Solutions Coordinator, Bureau of Africa at UNHCR headquarters. Mr. Mundia holds a master's degree in management from Thunderbird American Graduate School of International Management in the USA and a bachelor's in political science at the University of Nairobi, Kenya. Sir, we extend a warm welcome to you. The next panelist is Dr. Irudayarajan, Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram. Professor Dr. Irudayarajan is an internationally acclaimed scholar on migration. Presently, he is Chair, Professor, Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs, Research Unit on International Migration at the Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala. He has published extensively in national and international journals on social, economic, and demographic implications on international migration. He had projects on international migration with the European Commission, International Labour Organization, Asian Development Bank, World Bank, International Organization of Migration, United Nations Fund, and for Population Activities, Migrant Forum in Asia, and Rockefeller Foundation. He is also a member of the National Migration Policy Drafting Group appointed by the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs. He is an editor of the annual series India Migration Report brought out by the Routledge. He is also editor-in-chief of the Rootless journal, Migration and Development, launched in 2012. Sir, we extend a warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Let me have the joy of introducing Dr. Professor R.B. Bhagat, Professor and Head, Department of Migration and Urban Studies, International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. Dr. R.B. Bhagat is currently working as a Professor and Head, Department of Migration and Urban Studies in the International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. He holds master degree in geography from the Center for the Study of Regional Development, JNU, New Delhi, and PhD in demography from University of Mumbai. He was the recipient of UGC Research Award during 2002 and 3. Professor Bhagat was actively associated with working group on urbanization set up by the International Union for the Scientific Study of Population, Paris, France. He was coordinator of the Environmental Information System on Population, Settlement, and Environment at International Institute of Population Sciences, funded by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India, and a coordinator of concurrent evaluation of National Rural Health Mission, funded by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. He has worked as an expert in various projects related to the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs and Ministry of Human Resources, Government of India. He also worked as a consultant to UNESCO UNICEF India Initiative on Migration, International Organization of Migration, UN Population Division. He has been teaching postgraduate students and guiding MPhil and PhD scholars. His areas of interest include issues related to population, urbanization, migration, and environment. He has also worked in the areas of evaluation of demographic data and construction of social identities. And to moderate these eminent scholars, we have erudite scholar Dr. Bernardi Swamy, a senior fellow and coordinator, LISSTAR, Loyola College, Chennai. He is also a columnist and a media commentator on current international affairs and human rights. True, Dr. Bernardi Swamy does not require great introduction, but we all know his contribution to migration studies. So we have 4 competent people to deliberate on issue which is gripping the entire country, rather the entire globe. So we are in here for a great intellectual treat, and I welcome all of you to have a enriching session and thereafter engaging interaction with the panelist and the moderator. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Reverend Father Thomas Amurdam, Principal and Director of LISSTAR. LISSTAR is hosting this panel discussion, and we are very happy to welcome you all. I'll also add my voice with Principal in welcoming all the panelists and participants to this evening's panel discussion, and it is on challenges to inclusion, COVID-19. The format of the panel discussion is this. We have 3 eminent speakers for this evening. Each one of them will speak for 15 minutes. And after that, we will have, by that time, we would have received questions. And our technical team is working on that. And they will collect the questions and then they will give it to me. And based on that, I will place those questions to the panelists. And each one will be given 5 to 7 minutes, and they would respond to that. And then I will wrap up. This is a format for this evening. And today, to begin this panel discussion, first I'm going to invite Mr. Oscar Mundia, who is the UNHCR Chief of Mission, Delhi. All of us know that refugees, he's going to speak on refugees in the context of COVID-19. In any country, we have a population of refugees and immigrants. Immigrants are foreigners in a country. In India, we have little more than 2 lakhs of refugees, according to the UNHCR figure. And then we have 6 million immigrants, namely foreigners living in India. The problem is they are not citizens of this country. As such, refugees, de facto, either they are in the camps or out of camps as urban refugees. Wherever they may live, their houses are small. So in that way, how social distancing or physical distancing is maintained, and other problems faced by the refugees in the context of COVID-19. A country like Portugal, the moment the pandemic hit the country, heard the news, the country in one go went in for allowing everyone to be the citizens of the country. Asylum seekers, refugees, migrants, they gave them a temporary citizenship, citizenship, and thereby made them to have access to public health. Spain nationalized all the private hospitals. They said that anyone can go to any hospital. A country like Malaysia, they said whether you are with papers or without papers, whether you are travel documents or travel documents or with that you will be able to travel or not, you are undocumented or documented, we will bring all of you for the COVID testing. So like that, many countries have completely reversed their policies at the time of the attack of pandemic. Now let's listen to Mr. Oscar to tell us what's happening to the refugees in the context of COVID-19. Over to Mr. Oscar.
Yes. Good afternoon, colleagues. First and foremost, let me thank Reverend Father Thomas, Dr. Bernard as well, our moderator, and distinguished members of the panel. Let me say that it's really a privilege for me, particularly during this moment that we find ourselves locked down by the COVID-19, which is still, interesting enough, is still a developing and an unfolding situation. I have asked my colleague to help me with the PowerPoint presentation that I thought I should share with you. If you could go to the next page. Essentially, we've laid out the discussion to cover some of these areas. They are not exhaustive. I don't want to go point by point. You can see them perhaps on your screen. Next page. It is for the purpose of this discussion, we thought also we should paint a picture of where we stand as far as displacement is concerned across the globe, and perhaps to compare that with the purpose of the office. UNHCR was established to deal with the effects of the Second World War. At that particular time, there were only 850,000 refugees. Today, we have over 71, just about 71 million people who are displaced. And displaced means many categories of persons, as we will see as we move on. Today, our office has more than 16,000 people across the world in 130 countries. And go to the next page, please. I think I want to spend a little bit of time on this first issue of who we help in terms of definitions, because these definitions, particularly when it comes to refugees, are very, very important, because recently we have seen this conflation of different categories being referred to as refugees, refugees being referred to as migrants, migrants being referred to as displaced people, etc., etc. And perhaps for our purpose this evening, it is important that we identify these definitions clearly. Refugees, and this is the one that I really want to underline, are people who cannot fundamentally go back to their countries of origin for fear of persecution until the situation that caused them to run away has been resolved. Asylum seekers are persons who are protected under the law. Ordinarily, they would be in another country. IDPs, again, these are nationals who are in their own country, but displaced in different parts of the world. Stateless people are persons whose countries, there is no country that, that claims, where they can claim statehood. Returnees, again, this is a group that comes out of refugee, the refugee group. These are people who are formerly refugees, but because the situation where they came from has been resolved, they are able to go back. So what does UNHCR do? UNHCR primarily is protection mandate is first and foremost to ensure that persons who need protection have access to territory. They can be able to cross borders. And to be able to provide protection, the refugee must have in the first instance been able to cross these borders. So borders have to be open. Assistance, this is really the material assistance that we normally give refugees. Here in Asia, it's not very common because most refugees live in urban areas, but in most developing countries, such as in Africa, in the Middle East, in parts of now of the Americas, we do provide what we call care and maintenance. And care and maintenance is the whole slew of things that we provide to refugees to ensure that they can survive, whether it be it shelter, whether it be it health, whether it be it water, etc., etc. Refugee status determination is needed to determine whether the claims that a person is making can allow us to confer refugee status on him. Solutions, again, this is to do with as soon as somebody becomes a refugee, we start looking for a solution for him. What does that mean? This is to say that we try we assume that his situation as a refugee cannot be forever. It has to come to an end at some point. And the most preferred solution in there is return to his former country. If they are not able to return, we also seek that they are integrated in the country they are in, or they could also be resettled in a third country. Advocacy is something that we do because obviously governments, the mandate that we have has been conferred to us by government under the General Assembly of the United Nations. So we try to advocate with governments because not any, as you heard from Dr. Bernard just a moment ago, not every government behaves the same way when it comes to refugees. So we have to advocate, we have to work with governments, we have to sit with them and show them the advantage of accepting and fulfilling this responsibility they have under international law. All this cannot happen without resource mobilization. So we need to constantly be working with donors to ensure that we have the resources that are needed to support those refugees. Next. Let me say that the situation that we face today of COVID-19 is very unusual because I think it is the first time in the world that everybody, whether they are refugees or they are nationals, they are faced by the same problem. And what this has done is to accelerate the competition for resources. What does that really mean? This means, for starters, that the majority of refugees, for example, they live in marginalized, on the margins of society, in slum-like conditions. So they do not have, in many countries, because I think about 62% of all refugees globally live in urban areas. 52% are children or below the age of what we define as children. So this creates a very difficult path for them. So a lot of refugees, including here in India, 51% of all the refugees that are registered at the UNHCR are in urban areas. And here I think I should also mention that there are two sets of refugees here in India. There is a group that is supported by UNHCR, and there is another group that is completely supported by the government of India. So when the COVID crisis happened, we have observed that many people in urban areas have lost their jobs, as Dr. Bernard was saying, and they left urban areas for their homes. And because they were employed in the informal sector, and you know the informal sector, usually the incomes there are very small. So the addition of the pandemic really put them on the margin. So go to the next page. We want to show you a small video of what UNHCR has been doing when it comes to global emergencies such as COVID, SARS. It's not very long, please bear with me.
What are we doing to help refugees avoid coronavirus? Refugee camps and urban slums can be overcrowded and have weak sanitation and healthcare systems, but refugee families who live there deserve access to medicine and care if they become sick too. We work with governments to make sure they are included in national and local plans to address the COVID-19 pandemic. UNHCR has experience in dealing with virus outbreaks and global emergencies like SARS, Ebola, and influenza. Together with partners, we have started increasing distribution of clean water, soap and waste disposal measures, and launched information campaigns. We work with countries hosting refugees to ensure they are included in plans to prepare and respond to the pandemic. But these countries also need support. International solidarity will be key when to make this work. Everyone deserves to be protected from the coronavirus. Will people fleeing war still be able to cross borders? Countries can adopt measures to help control COVID-19, but they should not prevent people who may be fleeing from war from getting to safety. If there is a health risk, other actions can be taken, like testing or a time-limited quarantine. Could refugees become targets of discrimination? When fear and uncertainty kick in, scapegoats are never far away. We have already seen anger and hostility directed at some people. We have seen rumors circulating on social media. If left unchecked, the urge to blame and exclude may soon extend to other groups, minorities, the marginalized, and anyone labeled foreigner. COVID-19 does not discriminate. Why would you? Tourists, business people, and ministers have already been infected. COVID-19 is a test, not only of our healthcare systems and mechanisms for responding to infectious diseases, but also of our ability to work together as a community of nations in the face of a common challenge. Let's stay safe, smart, and kind.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's go to the next slide.
What?
This slide essentially captures what the lady was saying on the video. I will not dwell too much on that in the interest of time, but we could go to the next. When it comes to India, when COVID-19 happened, one of the things that we recognized from very early on was that we needed to change the way we do business. And that is to say, we very, very quickly reoriented our operation. Most operations in Asia, not just in India, do not have what we call a care and maintenance operations, such as the one that I described before. Most operations in Asia are upstream best practice, advice and working with partners, but not really providing care and maintenance. So this really provide the onset of COVID provided us with a unique challenge, because we had to do a reset of how we do things. The first thing we did was to say that we will not distinguish between refugees and host communities. And this is very important because all the interventions that we have done thereafter have basically been designed to benefit refugees and host communities. And one of the most important gap that we quickly identified was food, because the communities that were leaving the cities, the communities that were deciding to leave, were primarily leaving because they didn't have jobs, and therefore they could not have jobs. They could not meet their household food requirement needs. So we did a quick appeal, and we had quite a good support from our bureau, which is based in Bangkok, in order to be able to buy these things, because we, as I said, as an office, we were not configured to be providing things like food packages to refugees. The second thing that we also realized is the nature of the challenge that we had. COVID is a health, is a hygiene challenge. So we quickly started organizing refugee communities to produce masks. And these masks, as they are being produced, and they continue to be produced as of today, we distribute them not just to refugees, but to communities that are around refugees. We will continue doing that. The second thing that we also did was to work with the private sector. They donated some soap, and we have also received quite a bit of further support from some donors, and we bought quite a bit of soap, which again we are distributing not to just refugees, but to communities, sometimes on a 50-50 basis. The other important point that we needed to do was to ensure that refugee communities received proper information. This means that we had to transmit through their readership some of the government directives, the directives and advisories that were coming from the Ministry of Health and WHO. We reproduce videos, we reproduce these in terms of in different languages and distributed them to the community of refugees. The third thing that we also did was to ensure that we maintained a linkage with the refugees, because here we were from one day to the other, where we could not reach, or we could not drive out because of the lockdown. So we had to change, we had to establish other modes of staying in touch with refugees. For example, giving some of the readers SIM cards, for example, working with their readership, dedicated toll-free numbers that are manned 24/7. So all these products were done in the recognition of the changed circumstance that we had undergone. The last point, of course, was a dedicated helpline number for SGBV reporting. We continued our work as far as RSD is concerned as well, interviewing some of the prospects on video from remote positions. Go to the next one. So these are some of the things that I was describing. You can already see from the picture. Again, I don't want to repeat all this because I've said most of it. You can see the government also has been quite open in enabling us, on one hand, enabling us to be able to distribute this food. We've spoken with the police chiefs. They have escorted some of our partners as they go to do these distributions. Police themselves have come forward with their own resources and distributed it not only to refugees, but also to host communities. I think Tamil Nadu, where you are, Dr. Bernard, this is also a good case of some of the activities that we have seen the government undertake. Next. As in every condition, we still have lots of gaps. We have a lot of challenges and gaps that's still remaining. What I'm describing before in previous in the previous pages is not really to say that all the problems are solved. This has been a 2.5 months of also ourselves learning how to change our working conditions, how we can deliver without actually being there. So there are many, many challenges associated with this. But I must say that given what we have as tools and as resources, we managed to do quite a bit. We've managed to help people with livelihood. We have managed to meet some of these basic needs, but still, again, I don't want to read through this list of challenges that remain. But I think looking ahead, we are also working with our headquarters and our bureau to ensure that, because we see this not as a short-term problem, but something that is going to be there over the horizon before people are able to reconstitute, to at least come back where they were. And where they were was in itself not a happy place. So we are actually bringing them back to zero, not to plus one, because the circumstance which was obtaining in the past in itself was not, it was a case of refugees living in very marginalized and with poor sanitation, etc., etc. So we need to rebuild that. We need to work, of course, with the international community, with the government of India, to see how we can resolve some of these issues. Next. So again, this is exactly what I was saying. You know, increasing our multilateral advocacy with institutions, with the universities like yourself, to help us have a better insight of some of the societal challenges, the challenges that exist within the communities. Working with because we realize also that the government itself has a huge challenge. Dealing even with its own population. Also, we realize that we must involve the corporate sector as well. And of course, I already described a little bit about the international community. So that is, I think, the last. Namaste. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oscar, for giving a very, very comprehensive picture on refugees in the context of COVID. You have spelled out very clearly the problems the refugees face, urban refugees, camp refugees, and the help rendered by the private sector, government, and all others. And also you have been pointing out to us the gaps and challenges that are existing. So in that way, very, very comprehensive picture to understand the condition of refugees in the context of COVID-19. Now let me move on to, let's move on to the next speaker, Dr. Irudayarajan, who will be speaking to us on the immigrant migrants. He's an authority and he is a specialist on immigrant migrants, and the STAR has conducted several migration surveys. Kerala, exact data he has. Tamil Nadu, Punjab, for all these states, Goa, for all of them he rendered the technical support for the migration survey. Immigrant migrants are those who are stranded in the foreign countries. It is estimated that there are 17 million immigrants, 17 million Indians working with Indian passport. And the concern for us is those who are in the Gulf countries, those who are, those who are stranded in the Gulf countries. The job is over. Many of the Gulf countries are ready to send the workers by their flight to India. But somehow we said, no, we will send our flight to bring them back. So there are many issues because in Gulf countries, they live in labor camps, and labor camps are all very cramped, and physical distancing absolutely is not possible, and access to public health is not possible. This is the condition in which our migrant workers, immigrant workers are working. So let's now listen to Dr. Irudayarajan on immigrant migrants. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bernard Swamy. I think we heard from the earlier speaker about some numbers on refugees at least. But for international migrants, Bernard Swamy said 17 million, but I think it is a highly underestimate. I would put probably 20 million people still holding Indian passport, something like 200 lakhs. Now, out of the 200 lakhs, 10 lakhs are in the Gulf countries, and 10 lakhs are anywhere in the world. Now, 10 lakhs, when we talk about, that probably includes only the documented international migrant, not even undocumented, because sometimes they are not in any part of the world, because we don't know. They sometimes throw the passport. And if you talk about the 10 million migrants in the Gulf, if you can focus upon, Indian government has probably failed to understand the migration issues. I think Indian government has failed in the lockdown 1.0 to understand both internal and international migration. I think this is something, I think it's being regretted. It's like a postmortem report we are doing. But please remember, the lockdown, the time was given just 4 hours for the people to, to be at home. And even the Janata curfew, we are given just 4 days. If the government of India has given at least 1 week for the international migrant and the internal migrant to move to their place, if they want to move by special flight, which they are arranging now, Vande Bharat flights and the Sarmik train, they would have done it earlier. Probably they would have controlled the coronavirus compared to what is happening today, because now the migrants are carrying virus. And we also might have, saved some of the lives of the migrants from both countries. I think this is something we have done a mistake, and we are repenting on that now. Because when the Prime Minister announced the lockdown in March 20, the first lockdown 1.0, there are only 500 people who were affected by COVID. At that time, people would have come from any part of the world or any part of India, either from Chennai or Mumbai or Delhi. I don't think you would have bothered about them. But today you are allowed them to go. Within 15 days, everybody who want to go, they can go. And basically, they are basically sending what I call them Corona Express. If the express is coming from Chennai to Kerala, so we are getting at least some people are coming with Corona. I think every state is talking about migrants are bringing in coronavirus. I think this is something we have to keep in mind. I think Professor Bhagat will talk more on that. The second point also we should talk about that is that out of these 10 lakh or out of these 10 million or 20 million people in the world, 10 to 15% of them will come back. Even from the Gulf countries, at least 15 lakhs will come back. 3 lakhs will come to Kerala, probably 1 lakh will come to Tamil Nadu, and then remaining places. But even then, like the earlier, they were not included in their mind of thinking by the government of India about migration. Even these 10 lakh people, 15 lakh people are coming, we were not talking about them. No state, except the Kerala Chief Minister. He is the only one wrote to the PM. Even he is going to talk about the migration issue tomorrow in this meeting. They want some database. Please remember, Kerala CM is the only CM in the country to send a letter to the PM several days back. Please bring our Pravasis. I was asking them, where are the other states? Where are the other states? I think $84 billion came to India. It is not just to come to Kerala. Only 20% came to Kerala. Remaining went to Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, UP, Rajasthan, Bihar. Where are those people? Not even talking about them. That is, again, they are not included in even thinking of nobody wanted them. They want their money. It's like when the milk is giving, when the cow is giving milk, you want the cow. And the cow is not giving milk, because this time the returned migrants are coming back with empty hands. I told several times, this is the first time in the history of migration, returned migrants are coming back with empty hands. That means we are talking about 15 to 30 lakhs people coming throughout the world, 15 lakhs coming to India from the Gulf countries, and they are coming back without money. And the remittances, the World Bank has already predicted 23% of the remittances will come down to India, 23%. But I am predicting something like 15%, because we know that people are not going to come back. Because even they come, what they will do in India? Because we know we had job crisis even pre-COVID. So it is not that India has everybody can welcome, because there is no jobs here, and India has a big demographic dividend. We want to send our own people back, to other countries through Skill India program. So I don't think they come back, they are not going to get a job. So they will think twice before they return back from the Gulf or any countries. They will try to hold on there. Even you give them free ticket, they are not going to come. I think this is something you should keep in mind. There is a reduction in remittances, and there will be increase in return migration. And even the government of India announced what is called the 20 lakh crore for what is called the self-reliant India. And then 5 days, finance minister spoke about many projects. Never there was a word mentioned called return migrants. Not even mentioned the word. Please remember, most of the political parties in this country were running to the migrants and the diaspora for funding the elections. Every political party get money from them, and they just to forget about them, not even talking about return migrants. Not even a single word. I think this is something, it is not in their frame of mind. I think migrants are not there. International migrants are not in the picture at all. And then you look at that, the migrants, when they are coming, we are talking about rehabilitation for the migrants. No government is talking about that, except Kerala is talking something, policies, program. Nobody talking about return migrants. Rehabilitation, reintegration. Very important topic, reintegration. I don't think we are talking about that. So I am telling the Kerala government, because I do advise the Kerala government, I am telling them the return migrants are going to be 3 different types. One is normal return migrants. Every year people are coming back from the Gulf, because the Gulf you go, even you die, they will send you the dead body back, because they will not going to give you PR. That's why many people are running to PR countries like America, US, UK, because you can become a citizen. But if you go to Gulf, you cannot become citizen. So you have to come back. So we have people, for example, we have a stock of return migrants in Kerala is something like 15 lakhs and Tamil Nadu is around 9 to 10 lakhs. So we know return migrants are there. In fact, Kerala Assembly, we have 6 MLAs who are return migrants. They have not come because of the crisis. They have not come. They have done some work. They have made some money. They have come back. And I was talking to one of the MLA. He told me, sir, these 6 MLAs you are talking to us, we have won the elections. But there are many return migrants contested elections. They could not win. That means I don't know how many MLAs in the Tamil Nadu Assembly or even throughout the country assemblies are the MPs. How many are return migrants, we don't know, because we never worry about them. I think something important for us to understand, they are all the normal return migrants. Government don't need any help from them. In fact, they have money. Only government should facilitate their investment so that they are not being cheated by some people. The second group of return migrants, we call them, what I tell them is forced return migrants. Because they went recently, they have not made money to pay even the recruitment cost. They paid 1 lakh and went back to Gulf. They have not even made money to give back the 1 lakh. I think these are the distressed return migrants. And for them, even government should provide some cash transfers. I was talking to the Indian government and every press, Indian return migrants who are within the country, you should pay them 25,000 rupees cash transfer. I talked to many TV studios, and I was so glad. Yesterday, UP government said they are giving money to all the migrants 1,000 rupees. At least it has reached somewhere. Somebody asks you 5,000, you can say, no, I don't have 5,000, I'll give you 500 rupees. I think the idea of transferring money to migrants have come in. I think it has to be replicated for the international forced return migrants. By Tamil Nadu, by Andhra Pradesh, you have to give them cash transfer. Otherwise, you are going to end up, these migrants are getting into psychological depression, and you are going to hear not the farmer suicide, you are going to hear return migrant suicide. And I'm already seeing that signs in many parts of the country. Return migrants coming back from states, and this will be replicated for the return migrants, because in 2008, when the global crisis hit, There are many migrants who came back. They were all, some of them committed suicide. I think we should talk about them very seriously, because compared to the earlier crisis, like the global crisis, like the Nidakat, like the Gulf War, this time you are going to get more return migrants. The third one, which is very important, is what I call them re-migrants. That means return migrants, some of them will re-migrate. In our policy, we should talk about re-migration. We always talk about immigration. There are people, I talked to some people in Kerala, in the North Kerala. If you ask somebody, how many years you are in the Gulf, they will say 15 years. Where were you? 3 years in Dubai, 2 years in Kuwait, 4 years in Saudi Arabia, 3 years in Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain. They are in every country. That means they were re-migrating. I think the time for us to talk about re-migration, for that they need extra skills. Skill India program we are talking about in this country. I think we should upgrade their skills. Like economy to executive, we talk about the flight, economy to executive. Like that, we have to talk about how to improve their skills so that they can go beyond Gulf. Because migration is not going to end. There will be new migration corridor. There will be new sectors will come. There will be new countries will emerge, which even you are not imagined. Africa, Europe, even America. I think we have to look for new opportunities. So the migration is not going to end. Like the COVID. COVID has required no passport. Is COVID has passport? No. It has no visa. It moves everywhere. If COVID can move, why can't people like us move? Migrants can move. I think this is something we should be very strong about that. But the short term migrant will lose. Long term, immigrants will win. I think we have seen it in the earlier history, and this is going to happen even in the future. Migrants will win in the long run. I'm going to stop here. Thank you, Dr. Bernard-Sami.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your excellent presentation on immigrant migrants. I don't think that anybody else can speak other than Dr. Rajan with, so forcefully and authoritatively on immigrant migrants. And particularly, he has been in the committee constituted by the Kerala government and looking at the reintegration. All of us know for migrants, international migrants, there are 3 stages: pre-departure, post-arrival, and reintegration. And sir was highlighting on the reintegration. Why people are not welcome. Go to Philippines, go to Indonesia, even our own neighboring country, Sri Lanka, the returnee migrants are welcomed as heroes and heroines. Remittances, they are the oxygen for any country. And it is next to exports in India, it is the remittances which provides the much needed oxygen in terms of forex, foreign exchange. And those who are bringing the foreign exchange are not respected. He also made a distinction between those who are, those who are living and working and yearning in the developed countries and those who are working in the Gulf countries, Singapore and Malaysia, the blue-collar job. So he made a distinction and he said that people in the developed countries may have the love for India, but their bank balances may be with the Swiss banks. But it is the, those who are working in the Gulf, in Singapore and Malaysia, working 12 hours and 14 hours and 18 hours, they remit the money faithfully to this country. And that is what coming as oxygen to this country. And at the advocacy level, he pointed out that returnee migrants, unless and until they become a political voice, as in Kerala, 6 MLAs are returnees. They are not, they are removed from the political map of India because they have no voting rights. As they have no voting rights, political parties very clearly, they remove them from the political agenda. So this is time for us to look at, their voting rights and their political inclusion, and that only will give them a bargaining power. With this, let us move on to the third one on interstate migrants. Dr. Bhagat is going to speak on that, and he is on authority on that, and he has been in the committees constituted by both UNESCO and UNICEF. And one of the articles I was reading, all of us, and he's also a good friend of all of us, Chinmay Tumbe has given very conservative estimate of the return migrants is 30 million, 3 crores. He says that by beginning of March, it was holy festival, and the migrants were normally returning. So 5 million migrants, they return. So that is, 5 million. And then during the second phase is the lockdown period, April 30 to May. And that time, another 5 million through walks. This is the time they walked and then cycled. And then they were also going by small, hitchhiking, whatever lift they were able to get, they were able to reach. And towards the end of May, they started the Shramik trains. And then with that, each train was carrying 1,400, like that from different sectors. So 20 million he estimates. So 30 million have reached their destination. And most of them walking. The image of interstate migrants that is now, comes to everyone's mind is people walking with their families, children walking, women walking, young people walking, old people walking, families walking, and dying before they reach their destination is the heart-rending story of our country. This is reverse migration. Everybody has said that the reverse migration is taking place. Instead of reversing the pandemic, we should have really reversed the pandemic, COVID. But instead of reversing the pandemic, the reverse migration is taking place. Will it lead to remigration? And all that connected with, all the elements that are connected with interstate migration, I leave it to Dr. Bhagat to discuss with us. To Dr. Bhagat.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sami, for inviting me to this talk. And I also like to thank Father Thomas of LISSTAR for hosting this meeting. I am glad to join Oscar Mundia and Professor Rajan, who has given very detailed picture about the refugee and the immigrants. I shall be talking about the internal migrants and with reference to interstate migrants. So you have seen that during last 2 months, we have seen the picture, migrants walking on the roads and tracks. And it is virtually some sort of migration crisis in this country. It has shaken our conscience. But when we look at this crisis, is it a simply what we are discussing in terms of forms or in terms of all of a sudden emerging, or it is related with a deeper social, economic and political crisis in this country? I think this is one thing to be looked into, that migration crisis which has emerged, is it related to something deeper social political crisis of this country? And I would like to submit in this respect some of the things which we academicians have also to look into. First and foremost is that this crisis is raising certain theoretical and epistemological questions. And that theoretical and epistemological question is how we are producing knowledge in our different disciplines, in economics, in sociology, two dominant disciplines, and the other disciplines. I personally have been looking into, and I find that there is a complete, very complete neglect of space and place approach in knowledge production. So space and place are not part of the dominant social theories. And because of that, we produce the knowledge as if it is independent of space and place. We have to keep in mind that people live on space and place, and there is a relationship between people and place. We are talking about, or more those who are making policy or advising in the policy matters. We are talking more about people, but people and place relationship we are not talking about. And therefore, there is some gap in our knowledge production which hides certain things, and this hidden picture was also the neglect of the concern of the migrant, which are related to space and place, which has all of a sudden came into our limelight.
So to understand how space and place is related with people, we have to see the process of urbanization. Process of urbanization is something which is unfolding, changing space and place. It decides about access to resources to the people, to the groups. And therefore, we need to see how our urbanization process is unfolding in this country, linkage between urbanization and development. Where does migrants or migration fits into this linkage between urbanization and development process? So the first thing that we observe that our urbanization is not inclusive. Our urbanization is not environmentally sustainable, and our urbanization is regionally imbalanced. And therefore, we find interstate migration. Interstate migration, one can trace right from the time of the British, when they started the permanent settlement in 1793, created a new type of zamindari system in Gangetic Plain and northern India. And at the same time, there was deindustrialization of household cottage industry in most of the part of India. A large mass of rural people, they started migrating to the emerging urban center, the new urban centers of India that has no historical roots. And these urban centers are Mumbai, Calcutta, Chennai, and later on it became New Delhi when the capital shifted from Calcutta to Delhi. So we have to see the urban, the context of urban, how it has been created by the Britishers, a spatial economy, which is controlling and commanding our national economy and the dominance of the urban centers. So these urban centers, I think we have 8 mega cities, 4 I have already mentioned, and along with that, Pune and Ahmedabad and Bangalore and Hyderabad. So these 8 mega cities, and there are 53 million plus cities, they are dominating the economy of the people, economy of the country. And who are included in the city and who are excluded in the city, that I think is very, very important. Who is producing this city? So what is the role of the migrants? We are calling them migrants, but who is making the city? These are, I think, is very important question that we have to raise academically, theoretically, and epistemologically that can fit into the process, policy making process, making certain ideological contribution. So when we see the role of the city, and you also see the incidence of COVID, the 8 mega city which I mentioned, where just 7% of India's population lives, contributes more than 50% of the COVID cases. And we are fighting in the big cities like Mumbai, Chennai, and Delhi, the COVID cases. And here, the migrant population, they are badly affected. Now, migration also, migration is not a homogeneous category. So sometimes we mention that we have 450 million migrants, but all migrants are not equally vulnerable. So we have permanent, semi-permanent migrant, and we have seasonal temporary migrants. So these seasonal temporary migrants who also lives in rural area, their households are also there in rural area, and they also live, work and live in the urban area, and they keep on returning to their villages once and twice in a year. These type of migrants are more vulnerable, and they constitute about 20 million something. Based on NSSO, we have data. There is also lack of data. Can you returning? Some disturbance is coming. Their households are also there in a area. And they also, there is some disturbance.
Now you can speak, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, you can continue, Dr. Bhagat, yeah.
Okay, so this seasonal temporary migrants, for which we have some data based on NSSO 64th round, which comes about 15 million, and now it can be something like 20 million people who are circulating. So this category of migrants are badly affected. This may be 20 million or 30 million. We don't have exact estimates, just making certain guess estimate based on NSSO data. Now, state governments have come out and portals, and they are registering those returned migrants. We will soon get how many have been returning. I got this news from various sources that government has, central government along with state government, they have transferred something like 11 million people. And then many people have returned by their own, by foot, by cycle, and etc. So something returning will be 20 to 25 million people altogether. And these are the category of people who are seasonally, temporarily circulating, migrating. And many of them are daily wage workers. So this is the category which are mostly affected. So I was talking about the city. They are in fact not the migrant workers, they are the city makers. They have made the city, and our cities are producing the GDP or the wealth. But what is they are getting? Their job is insecure. They don't have job security. They don't have social security. So these migrants, which are vulnerable migrants working in informal sector on daily wage basis, migrating seasonally, temporarily, and circulating, and those who are from interstate, they are further vulnerable. And these migrant people are doing 3D jobs, dirty, dangerous, demeaning, contributing to the city. But what happens? They are economically deprived. What is their earning? They don't earn more than 10,000 rupees, even less than what is there in Manrega. In Manrega, if somebody works for 30 days, it is 6,000 rupees at the rate of 202 rupees. So less than 10,000 rupees they are earning. So economically deprived, they are socially excluded. Who are these people? These people are mostly from scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, BC, and politically underweight. They don't have political weight because they do not figure in the voter list, or if they figure in voter list, they cannot go at the time of election to vote there in their respective places. So this is what is happening. They are economically deprived, socially excluded, and politically underweight. And here they need our attention in policy making. What is to be done? I think time is short. I will be brief. What is to be done? So returnees maybe 20 million or 30 million, something like that. And they will be concentrated more in certain selected states like UP and Bihar. UP has already said that 3 million have been received by UP. Bihar has received 2 million. This is the official figure. Unofficially, people have also returned. And Odisha is expecting 1.5 million people, returnees. So these select group of states, they are going to face problems. Now, what is to be done? Government has done something like support of the PDS and etc. And I agree with Professor Rajan. They must be given cash support. Cash transfer should be there. And at least what is there in the Manrega, the amount of Manrega, that is about 6,000 rupees per month, that should be given for few months to support their income and livelihood, because they are not able to send the remittances. They were earlier sending remittances, these migrants. Now they are not sending. So the cash support is very, very important, along with whatever support, but I don't find the cash support now given by central government. Some state governments have given some meager amount, but not that that is enough. In the long run, the rural development strategy should be strengthened or even entirely changed. There are certain schemes like Pura or Urban Mission. These schemes should be revived to have planned urbanization of the rural area. Urbanization has a great force. Urbanization is a form of cooperation, is a form of innovation. It is a form of productivity, but it is trapped in certain big cities and it is creating inequality. This force needs to be liberated, and the rural area needs to see a planned urbanization through mission, urban mission, through Pura. Because if you don't have planned urbanization, the business cannot flourish in rural area. Now government is supporting the MSME, but most of the MSMEs are in urban area. Whether MSME is going to be rural area, MSME can go to the rural area when we have the facility of infrastructure and we have certain urban amenity. So government has to change this one and have to have a urbanization policy where rural areas can be urbanized through planned manner. And this can lead to complexes, rural urban complexes where agro-processing industry, labor-intensive industries can be established, and it can create job for those rural people, not only for those who have returned migrants, but even the local youth who are ready to migrate. So this way, I think we have to need to think as a strategy of rural development. Only then what is local can become vocal. What the government is trying to formulate or plead that India should be self-reliant, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and local should be vocal. Local should be vocal requires a drastic change in our economic policy. A policy of development from the below, a policy of decentralization, and organizing villages into complexes, rural-urban complexes, and promoting rural industrialization. I think that is the long-term strategy should be there, and it can change the perspective of urbanization. And then urbanization can become inclusive, environmentally sustainable, and urbanization can become regionally balanced. I think that is the need of the hour, and this is the long-term issues that we need to strive for and achieve in future. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhagat, for that wonderful presentation where you have connected urbanization as a pull factor for the interstate migrants, and telling that from 7 cities, you have the 50% of the coronavirus affected people. And that shows that how in the urban areas, how urbanization is unplanned, and connecting the interstate migration with urbanization, and telling us very clearly that, it is UP and Bihar who are contributing a huge number to the, to the interstate migration and migrants. Having completed all the 3 speakers and their presentation, let's move on to the questions, and let me put the questions to the panelists. And with the questions, you can also give your concluding remarks. Take about 5 minutes and then give your concluding remarks. Also, with the questions we have received for you. Let me start with Mr. Oscar Mundia, for whom some of the questions have come. And questions like Oscar Mundia. Oscar?
Yes, Dr. Bhagat, I can hear you.
Yes, some of the questions are addressed to you, and these are the questions, and with that you can also give your concluding remarks. Opening borders so that refugees may get some respite during the corona epidemic. So in that way, is there a possibility of opening of the borders? And secondly, reaching out to refugees in urban areas has been difficult. And so how the UNHCR is helping the Rohingyas and Chin refugees in Delhi and other urban refugees in India. Over to Oscar.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Bhagat, and to the other members of the panel. I think, as I said in the beginning, coronavirus does present our world with unprecedented challenges. And let me say most countries and most communities are learning as they go along how to deal with this pandemic. And pandemic normally, when they affect countries or communities, for the most part, everybody has to learn and has to do their best. But let me address this question of borders. I think as far as UNHCR is concerned, the ideal situation is where people are allowed, whether they have corona or not, to come through the borders, because their primary problems, as I described again in my presentation, is a protection problem, i.e. they are freeing from circumstances beyond their control and where they risk life. So ordinarily what we have said now in the time of coronavirus is if countries cannot allow immediately for people to cross the border, they can be temporarily sequestered. They can be temporarily put in a place, as we are doing with respect to what we call it, these 14 days where you are sequestered. We are saying, as far as borders are concerned, this could be a measure that a country can take, i.e. to not to contaminate or to spread the disease in the effort to arrest the disease. People can be sequestered for a short period of time, but it does not take away their protection needs. As far as reaching urban refugees, whether they are Shin's, whether they are Afghans, whether they are from Middle Eastern states, whether they are from Somalia, whether they are from Myanmar. In this time of coronavirus, we do not make any distinctions as such in the effort of assistance. The assistance where we can reach people, we do provide them not as communities of refugees, but rather as a community, i.e. where they are as a refugee group. We help them all together, depending again on the resources that are available. The way I would conclude this is maybe two ways. One is an appeal for resources for those groups of agencies among you, because I know there are people there with the capacity to provide assistance. Assistance is not always material. Assistance can be of different nature to help refugees survive during this situation. That is on one hand, and that support can be material. That support can be in solidarity. That support, as we are seeing from some of the private sector, is material in nature. And the third part that again we want to appeal is follow-up of guidelines, and these are guidelines that are supposed to help you evade the coronavirus. And this seems to me to be very simple and very cheap, because when it comes to things like washing hands, when it comes to things like social distance, these are things that for the most part do not cost much, if anything. Yet they do contribute a lot in evading this coronavirus. So this is something that we are advocating very loudly among the refugees and among the communities that host refugees. So this is the way I would like to conclude, and of course to appeal to the government to continue helping us to help refugees and host communities. Thank you very much to the panel, to the participants, and to the organizers, particularly Dr. Bernard and Father Thomas. A very good evening to you.
Thank you, Mr. Oscar, for the response you have given to the questions raised by the participants. And next, may I invite Dr. Irudayarajan. There are questions relating to remittances and human rights violations in the way of migrants were handled during the lockdown. And then the returnee migrants, 15 to 20% of them, when they come back, they say that remittances are going to be down. At the same time, the unemployment is going to increase. As far as international migration is concerned, whether remigration will take place, and if it is going to take place, when it will take place. So relating to remittances and returnees and concerns about that. Dr.
I just want to pick up only 2 points. One is that return migration, remigrating. Let us take the example of migration policies in the Gulf. For example, many countries in the Gulf, already Kuwait has announced amnesty. People who have no proper document, they can go back. So some people might come because of the corona fear.
Yeah.
And the remigration will happen not this year. It will happen probably in 2021. Partly because look at the oil price. Oil price is very low. And partly because there is no demand for oil. In India itself, there are 800 flights are parked in the airport. And similarly, buses. Similarly, I have not put petrol for my car. So most of us are not using any petrol. So once everything started moving, there will be a demand. So the oil price will be doubled by December. Then probably things will move. I think we have to wait, but the remigration definitely will take place. I don't think we should worry about that. But the remittances will decline definitely. So it will have some implication. Even we have to discuss about sustainable development goals, because sustainable development goals talk about 2030. But if you want to achieve that, now the migrants are going to come back. You have to even postpone the sustainable development goals. It may not happen in 2030. You have to postpone to maybe 2 to 3 years extra, because migrants' contribution in poverty decline and everything, it is something very, very important. The final point I would like to make is that now the flights started coming in. It's not the regular flights, only the Vande Bharat flights. That means you have not seen the real return migrants. Who have come now is basically the dependents, wives, pregnant wives, children, and the elderly. Very few migrants have come back. Real migrants will come when the flights start normal operations. That means what we have seen, the return migrants, is basically a trial for the full movie. We have to wait for the full movie, and the full return migration will happen probably until September. We'll have, Kerala, Onam is coming, you have Deepavali, you have Christmas. So all those people who lost jobs will come back by end of the year, and the new beginning will start in 2021. One point before I conclude, now people who are coming back, many of them are not getting their earlier arrears of salaries. That way, many employers in the Gulf are making money using the crisis, sending back the return migrant without paying their normal salaries and other systems. And everybody is cheating the migrants. Now, for example, I was talking to some of the migrants in Kerala. They told me we are not going because my employer have to give me a lot of money, because I keep some of the salary to my employer. He will give me whenever I go back. Now if I go, I will not get the money. So this is like a binding of the migrants. So many companies want to send the migrants back because they want to use that money. They don't need to pay to these poor migrants. I think this has to be protested. Indian embassy should play a very key role, not just bringing back the migrants. They have to bring back the migrants with their savings and with their salaries. I'll stop here. Thank you very much for the Dr. Parnarsamy and Father Thomas, and also what is called my co-panelist, what is called Oscar and Professor Bhagat for this meeting. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Irudayarajan. And some of the questions to Dr. Bhagat are the following. What is your policy suggestions to deal with reverse migration? Also, the other questions are ensuring social security of migrants working in the informal sector. Whose responsibility is that? And policymakers have to think of urban space management inclusive of migrants. Is it happening? Can reverse migration from urban to rural areas help in reducing urban poverty and create a self-sufficient, sustainable rural economy? These are some of the questions which you can respond at the same
Yes,
time.
thank you. Thank you. All questions, I think all questions are connected.
Yeah, connect.
So those who have returned, I think we have made a survey along with our student in Bihar, and 80% those who have returned, they are likely to come back to the city. So only 20%. Now, why they 80% likely to come? Because the scope of earning is very, very low in states like UP and disturbance. I think somebody is talking.
Can you, yeah.
Next is that social security, whose responsibility? I think that is the main issue. Migrants belong where? Do they belong to state of origin? Do they belong to state of destination? Or they belong, it is the central government's responsibility? I think this is, migrants have become some sort of lost citizenship. And the states are fighting. Who is going to foot the bill of the railway fare? We have seen it. And it has been decided that 80% central government, 20% state government. Which state government? I think this is where the real question of citizenship comes into. They are formal citizens of this country, but they have not acquired substantive citizenship. It means the economic, social, and political rights are being violated. To my mind, as Constitution says, the right to move is a fundamental right. So wherever they are going, they are contributing. They are contributing to the city. It is the state government of the destination. They should be made responsible, supported by central government. And urban management of urban space, is it becoming inclusive? No. Urban areas, cities have become a commodity. It's not something which is socially inclusive. And the people within the city, migrants, slum dwellers, minorities, these are the group of people. They are excluded. And cities have become a center of wealth creation. But wealth is created by the migrants. But wealth is not given. Even the share is not given. So this is, I think, larger political question related with the question of citizenship, inclusiveness in the governance, decentralization of this country, local development, sustainable development. These are the larger questions, and these are the questions related with the space and place that I made in the beginning, that we have to bring space and place in our theoretical and epistemological understanding and look at development from that point of view, development from below. Development cannot take place without planning, but we have abundant planning. We have only projects for profit. There is no inclusiveness. So, and in the health sector, you have seen the insurance, Ayushman Bharat, did it able to protect the migrant workers? So we have privatization of health facility, which is not inclusive. What happened? So public health facility, public transportation, these are the issues. Public housing, now government has announced the rental housing for the migrant worker. This should have been done earlier. So these are some of the things. So development from below, planning, decentralization, inclusiveness, and bringing the approach of space and place, relating people with place. Now place has been separated from the people. Those who are making the place, those who are creating this city, they are separated. So this is why I think larger issue, which is theoretical, epistemological, political, and planning, I think, and policy matters. So simply social security will be window dressing. It is not going to help in the long run, but certainly it is required. It is incremental, it is a step. Social security and job security, which is the migrants at the present do not have access. And so immediately job security and social security should be provided, followed by a sustainable urbanization and inclusive urbanization. I think that is the should be our long-term policy and effort in this direction. So thank you very much, and I would like to thank everybody, Dr. Bernard Sami, Dr. Mundia, as well as Professor Rajan, and all participants for giving this opportunity and listening to our views. Thank you very much.
So at the end of the panel discussion, I believe participants, all of us, we could take something, with us, the takeaways, many takeaways for us, for each one of us on the excluded groups. Excellent presentation by Mr. Oscar on refugees, about whom we heard very little. Lot of information and lot of data, and telling us clearly what's happening at the international level and what is happening at the national level, identifying the gaps, and an invitation to all of us to be aware of the situation and to help the way in which we can help or reach out to the refugees is a call given by Mr. Oscar. And Dr. Irudayarajan was able to highlight the stranded migrants outside India, and he was able to highlight very clearly those issues. And Dr. Bhagat was able to tell us about the interstate migrants. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists. Number one, they have agreed long back to come for this. And second, they joined us yesterday for the trial, and today in time, on time, and they were able to enlighten us with such a insightful input on the areas in which they spoke to us. I will take this opportunity also to thank my director, LISSTAR director, Father Thomas Amardam, for providing this opportunity also to give the introductory remark and also to introduce the speakers for the day. And the technical team has been doing an excellent work, great support, and Dr. Xavier in the technical team, Mr. Peter and Mr. Sampson, thank them wholeheartedly for their excellent support provided for this Zoom meeting, and my own staff in LISSTAR, and all the participants for being with us and participating enthusiastically, and for putting a lot of questions. We could not summarize all the questions that are given to us, and only few questions we were able to give it to the panelists, and they responded. So thank you all, and we will meet in some other platform. Good night.
Thank you.